Hey guys, it's Shawn. You may be surprised or you may not be surprised to hear that Donald Trump is impacting the development of corporate law and maybe what the future of corporate law looks like. So, obviously, he's been an influential figure on the political scene, whether you like him or hate him. Donald Trump has changed politics in America. Future politicians will learn from him. Many of the themes we're seeing today were things that he started. A lot of people backlashed and we went the other direction because they didn't like the themes he was laying down. They certainly didn't like the way that he spoke to many people and the way he did tweets much of the time. But he impacted the lay of American politics. Now, based on recent articles and news, he may be impacting the development of corporate law and how we use corporate law in the United States. We're going to turn into that very fascinating topic here in just a minute and examine what's happening here. As always, folks, this is not legal advice. Consult your legal advisor. It's also not financial or investment advice. One of the things they're talking about here is ending the life of offending corporations. And apparently in New York, there is specific consideration to ending the life of Trump's entity or entities that have been involved in these cases, right? So there's a deep investigation going on in New York. Trump gave a deposition and, was there speaking about what was happening with his companies. He used the Fifth Amendment, as many people have widely reported. But now what the press and apparently the New York Attorney General, according to the articles I've read, are considering is using what they call the corporate death penalty, essentially to end the life of the corporation. So is that within the power of the state? Yes, because what we have is we get business licenses and corporate documents from the state. And so typically it's just a filing process here in the U.S. Prior to the late 1800s, early 1900s, you really had to be something special to be a corporation. You would need an act of the legislature generally to become a corporation or entity. As we moved into the 20th century and now the 21st century, they made this matter of routine. Many of you that are business owners or business leaders out here, you may have created LLCs or corporations, and really it's a matter of getting a form. Often the states have forms available for you. You file the form, you submit the filing fee, bam, you get it back, and you have a stamped document saying you're a corporation or an LLC in a particular state. So that comes through that process. If you read further into those corporate statutes, it does typically say that the corporation can be terminated, and for a variety of reasons. One of the big ones why a lot of corporations get terminated or LLCs get terminated is they just don't pay their annual fees to the state, or they don't make tax filings, and generally that's a quick way to get your company terminated. But you really are doing business under the state's charter and the state's ability allowing you to do that. Again, right now it's been largely mechanical, although there have been limited cases where companies have had their charters revoked due to violations of law, and they're no longer permitted to continue business. Now they're talking about using this specifically on Donald Trump's entities. Of course, the issue becomes the same issue that we're seeing widely, which is, will these terminations be processed fairly, and will they be used on a non-political basis? Or will this corporation law start to be used as another political tool? If you agree with the political party in power, we'll permit you to have a corporation, we'll permit you to continue to exist. But if you don't agree with us, if you go a different direction on our policies, maybe we'll make it difficult for you to be a corporation by adding other searches or layers on that charter process. Again, right now it's largely just a matter of submitting a filing fee and submitting paperwork. But will corporations and states start adding, searches and approvals, and maybe have an approved person list that can file a corporation? All of these things are possible, but then becomes a political tool, because will it be processed fairly on an impartial basis? And is it appropriate for the government to be picking which businesses can do commerce and not. Certainly, we saw a little bit of this at the beginning of the pandemic. If you followed certain government protocols, procedures that they laid down for how to run your business in the pandemic, you were more likely to get a free pass and be allowed to keep your business open. People who didn't do that, who didn't follow those procedures, they were actually, in many cases, proceeding against the business, proceeding against the business license. Now, the question is, are these being used for public safety, for health, or are they being used to stop political speech? And where do you draw the line between the two? Politics and business are now starting to merge even more. We've talked about that growing trend. We've talked about how businesses now have to potentially take political stands because if they don't, they're going to be marginalized and not be viewed the same in the marketplace. Now we see with your corporate charter, is your corporate charter, your ability to do business, or your LLC charter, your ability to do business as an LLC, are the existence of those charters going to be tied to following a certain political dogma? And if so, what is it and how far does it go? And is it appropriate to have the government use this tool to really shape behavior within business entities? And I think your answer is going to vary by which political camp you are in. I know people who will think this is highly appropriate. This is what the government should do. The government should be shaping behavior of corporations and using every tool in its power to make sure corporations behave appropriately and don't step over lines or harm anybody or abuse anybody. There are other people that will say we need to allow businesses to be free and allow them to be innovative, and we don't want in any way to add additional hurdles to being a corporation or LLC. So this is really a social / view of the government / view of the marketplace question where different people are going to come up with different answers. And your corporation or LLC might be hanging in the balance, whether you can continue to exist, whether you'll have to do certain things within your LLC to comply with largely political directives. That's something we'll see in the future. The obvious ability to abuse this is great. What if you tie charters or ability to do business to taking certain political stance? What if you have attorneys general and other state employees and prosecutors and others who really want to end the life of corporations who disagree with them, but then look the other way on corporations that don't disagree with them, right? The ones that do agree or support their policies or maybe give them campaign donations, will look the other way for those. But the ones over here that are being a thorn in our side, maybe they're using our corporate resources to be difficult. Maybe they'll make their life difficult too, right? So this could really be abused. And in the case of Trump, the allegations are about bookkeeping, record keeping, taxes. These are things that we want to be careful about as businesses, obviously, and do a good job about. But do these rise to the level of terminating your entity completely and not allowing you to do business anymore? I think that's a case-by-case decision that has to be made. But the fact that this is going to be considered over and over again, and largely in this case, in the Trump case, on a political basis, because the Attorney General in New York has really stated that she wanted to go after Trump. So she has an agenda for political purposes to target a particular person. And now she has perhaps this extraordinary power of the state to end the life of his companies and to radically alter the business landscape by removing a competitor from New York and an employer as well, I would mention. So, folks, this is where we're at. We are now seeing that business licenses are turning even more political. We saw some of it with the pandemic. Follow our rules, you get to keep your business. Now we're seeing it with other businesses and other situations. Trump they're saying basically if he doesn't do what they want, he doesn't follow their rules, they're going to terminate his business. It'd be one thing if you did that for everybody who, misstated tax statements. But there's many businesses out there that have had tax audits, have had tax issues, and have been able to continue in business. This one seems to be, and I could be wrong, it seems to be politically motivated based on the campaign promises. And then to use that to forward into this unusually used remedy is interesting. Would love to hear your thoughts. Do you support the use of the corporate death penalty? Do you think that's something that should continue into the future? Do you think that's an appropriate role of government, or do you disagree on freedom grounds? Would love to hear your comments. I'll see you down there in the YouTube comments. Thanks for tuning in, folks. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and give me a like if you enjoyed this video so more people can see it.